Hello, and welcome back to Daryl D TV. Thank you so much for joining me. We are on another quest to show you a part of my Richard Corben comic book collection. This is part 11, and this is the first magazine edition. Magazine, etc., if you will. Um, If you watched the last video, the last Corben video I made, you know that I've pretty much come to the end of finding the Richard Corben books in comic book form. I'm sure some things will pop up here and there that I don't know about as of yet. And the handful of books that I am still looking for that I do know about are definitely way out of my price range. Just not willing to pay, those kind of prices for those books. So I'm pretty much at the end of those books in comic book form, and I've just come across a lot of other magazines that feature Corben's work in them, and so we're just going to continue with the magazine edition of my Richard Corben quest. Okay, so I've got some very interesting things that I want to show you, and I think I'm going to start with this huge monstrosity of a book. This is called Neverwhere, an illustrated epic adventure of fantasy and magic by Richard Corben. This is a big book. It's pretty thick in size, and I don't even think that they make a proper bag. I just kind of made my own bag for this thing. But this sucker is nice and thick. And it features all types of Corben goodness. I haven't gotten around to reading this yet. Most of these I haven't gotten around to reading. I have literally accumulated an entire long box of Richard Corben comics. An entire long box. That's literally how many books that I have of his. And those are just the ones I know about. So yeah, that might fit in there. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is because a lot of Corben's stories, a lot of his work was reprinted and featured in different titles. So it wouldn't surprise me if I have some of his stories like Den. I'm sure I have at least 3 different forms of those Den stories. They were featured multiple times. And then there's a lot of Corben stuff that I'm not going after just because of the prices or because they're just reissues or reprints or re-releases of a lot of his work. So I don't need them in multiple forms, but if I run across them and the price is right, of course, I'll add them to the collection. But we're going to start things off with this big Neverwhere monstrosity of a book. Next up, one of my favorite titles as a kid growing up. I always love when I can get my hands on one of these. This is Creepy. Creepy is a horror magazine, Warren. They were like, nobody could touch them as far as comic magazines are concerned, in my opinion, back in those days. This is number 84, the sports issue, and that's an iconic Richard Corben cover right there. And Creepy was known for doing different themes with their books where they would just feature one entire subject throughout the entire book. And this one is definitely, if you were into the Creepy magazines, then you recognize this book right away. And every story in here is sports related. So I was really happy when I found this, because I remember this cover from growing up back in the day. The next one we have is Vampirella, number 54. Now, Vampirella, I was never into this chick. I'm not a vampire guy. I could care less about it. I just never did anything for me. But there's multiple stories in this book, and Corben has a story in here. It's about like a blob or something, some kind of blobby type animal that a kid has as a pet in his basement or something, and I think he feeds people to it or something like that. So I really enjoyed the story. Not maybe 6 pages long, not a long story, but I was glad I got this. You know, this issue number 54 goes for a pretty penny, you know, a lot of times, but actually I was able to find this for a very decent price. And as you know, I read my comics, so I look for reader copies. I don't look for the super mint condition. You know, if the price is right and the book happens to be in great condition, wonderful. But if not, I don't trip off of that at all. All right, next up, another favorite of mine from back in the day. This one is Epic. What's the December of 1982. Those of you who are familiar with Epic know that Epic was a fantasy sci-fi magazine from back in the day, much like the heavy metals in the 1984 and 94 books. And there's a Corben story in this one. Not sure if I ever saw or if I ever read this one as a kid, but very happy to add this to my collection. A lot of times when, and I've said this many times, a lot of times when I'm looking for these books, I'll just punch in Corben's name and see what pops up. And every now and then, I will punch something up, and as I was looking for these, because I started looking for the magazines when I got towards the end of finding all of the comics, or I would just come across them. But this next one I want to show you, I clearly thought this was a magazine, and when I received it in the mail, I found out that it wasn't. This is an actual book from, I think this is from the late 60s. Let me see if I can find the year. 1967. And this was called Fantasy and Science Fiction. It's not a comic book. There's actually no pictures or art in here anywhere. It's just a book. And Corben did the cover. This is some of his earliest work. And I thought this was a magazine. So, of course, when I got this in the mail and I cracked this open, I was like, what in the world is this? So, it's a book. Thought it was a magazine, and it's a book featuring early Corben art. Some of his earliest work, I don't know. I'm not sure if this is the first thing he ever did that was published. I'm not exactly sure. But this is some of his earliest work. And it even came, this book is like maybe a 5x8 book. And it even came in a, like a really cool miniature bag. Never seen one of those before, not in this size. So that was cool. And then let's take a look at another one like that. So again, I'm thinking this is a magazine, and I see it online and I buy it and I get it in the mail. When I got it, I was like, what in the world is this? And then I take it out, and it's like a newspaper magazine, and it's called Media Scene. So this thing is big. So if this is like the magazine size, look how much bigger this thing is. So, and it features a nice article, interview with Richard Corben in it. Let me show you what this spread looks like. It's a big 2-issue or 2-page spread with art and commentary. Black and white. It's cool. Some nice history. It's Gil Kane is mentioned throughout this article, and it's called "Creating the Graphic Novel, the Fantasy Epic." So that was cool. I don't know how I'm gonna store this. I would have to have a pretty big bag and board for this thing, or I'm gonna have to figure something out. I don't know. Do they make long boxes these big? I don't know. Maybe a short box. It also has a cool article in here, interview with Von Modi. So that's cool. Media scene. You ever heard of that one? They actually sent me an extra copy of another volume of that one. Pretty interesting, huh? Okay, back to our regular size magazines. Here we have June 1977 of Heavy Metal. And a lot of heavy metal books featured the Den story. I'm just curious to see if this was one of them. Because outside of that, there were some other stories that Corben did. A number of other stories that he did for heavy metal. He did a lot of sci-fi stuff. Yeah, this is definitely a Den story. And this one is cool too because it also features Von Bode. Some of his artwork and writing in there. So early Corben goodness. Alright, yeah, okay. So next up we have issue number 41 of Creepy. Who doesn't like Creepy? If you are into horror, doesn't get much better than Creepy magazine. I have to be real careful with just buying these because some of them I have, and then some of them don't feature Corben. If I'm going to spend money, I'd rather get the ones with him in it first and then grab the other ones. I have a whole stack of other Creepy magazines that don't feature Corben, but I just want to show you the ones that do feature him. Now this next one is really cool. This is the other Warren magazine that is like top shelf when it comes to horror, and this is Eerie magazine. And Corben did a lot of work in Eerie as well. This is issue number 56. What is that? I don't know what's going on there. The Wolfman and some dude. I don't know. I don't know what they got. I don't know what their story is, but we'll soon find out. Now this one I got a while back. Let me tell you something. Many years ago, I was going through my collection. I would just buy books and accumulate them. There's some books that I was trying to complete the runs, like the Hulk or Iron Man, and just some books that I was just trying to complete the runs. And when you do that, at least when I've done it, if I find them and they're the right price, I don't even hesitate. I just grab them. And there's, I have several titles from 60s and 70s and whatnot that I have the complete runs for. For instance, I have the complete run of Daredevil. I have the complete run of Submariner. I have the complete run of Power Man and Iron Fist, and that would include the solo books as well. But I remember going through my collection and I couldn't believe how many books were in there that I had bought 2, 3, and even 4 times. It was ridiculous. Now, granted, I didn't spend a ton of money, but it's still kind of careless. And I wish I could say that at that point I stopped. But I did really buckle down, and at some point, I just all put it to rest. I would say maybe about 7, 8 years ago, I just kind of deaded that whole thing and was a lot more responsible about what I was buying. And I've been really, really good at it until today. So I had to go into work for a little while, and there's a comic shop just a few blocks away from my place of employment. And they've been getting in a lot of comic magazines lately. The last time I was in there, I think I spent like 50 bucks, 50 some bucks on comic magazines, Corben magazines. Some of them I've showed you here. So I thought to myself as I was accumulating them, because I got a nice stack. I'm only showing you a few today, but I thought, you know what, I better be a little bit more responsible and make sure that I'm not going out and buying the same books. And I try to memorize a lot of these covers because I haven't actually gotten around to reading all of them yet. So I was just going to go, you know what, let me just go on home and I'll make a list, put it on my phone, and that's, that'll be that. Well, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to stop. So I stopped in there, and sure enough, they had gotten even more books since the last time, a lot more books since the last time I had actually gone in there. So I bought, I think, another $50 I spent today. I got home. One of the first things I wanted to do was just go through my books and see if I had bought duplicates. And wouldn't you know, I did. And this number 56 of the Erie that I'm showing you today, here's a second copy I bought today. I feel pretty silly. Now, granted, it was only like maybe $7, $6, $7. Still, that's $6, $7 I could have spent on something I really wanted. So, I feel kind of silly after doing that. After all of this time and being so disciplined, and then I turn it around and I do it twice in one day. And I'll show you the second book in just a few minutes. But let's keep going, okay? Next up, we have the second issue of Epic Illustrated. And that's a Corben cover there. And this one definitely I remember from back in the day. When I saw this, I recognized the cover right away. And it's one of those books that, I've seen over and over the years and whatnot. So this is another one, not to be confused with another one I'm going to show you, but this is another one that I bought 2 copies of. Oh well. What are you going to do? I just have more to sell. Next up, this is The Odd Comic World of Richard Corben, a Warren fantasy publication. So here we have Corben again, classic Corben cover, and it's another nice thick book. Now this one and the Big Monstrosity, both of these I picked up at Greg's Comics here in town. Now I've mentioned Greg's Comics many times in my my underground comics videos, because I also collect a lot of underground comics. A lot of shops don't carry them. You guys know that. But I went into Greg's one day and I asked him about them, and he pulled out one entire long box and then an entire short box. And the short box was all magazines and books. And then he eventually pulled out another entire long box. And I would say that I bought probably 70% of what was in all of those boxes. A lot of those I bought doubles of too, but the prices were good enough. And I didn't mind too much with that stuff because I knew I could, get rid of those, or at least get what I paid for them, if not maybe a buck or two more for them. But anyway, after I went through all of the comic books, I started grabbing some of the regular books. And these were 2 of them that I got. So these 2 big books came from Greg's Comics. That's my favorite shop in the city, here in Phoenix. They're in Mesa, just outside of Phoenix, but basically Phoenix metropolitan area. And if you're ever in the Phoenix area, you definitely want to go over there. If you're a reader and you like, or you love those, those 60s, 70s books, He's got great books, great selection, and great prices. Go over there and talk to Howard. Tell him Daryl sent you. This next cover, this is a creepy magazine. This is issue number 132. Classic, beautiful Corben cover. You can spot his artwork a mile away with that. Just a beautiful cover. Look at those colors on there. Very happy to get this one. Cool sci-fi stuff right there. Man, I love that artwork. Look at that. Can't you just see that in movie form? Incredible. Okay. This was another heavy metal. This is March of 1983. I have not cracked this one open yet. And some big head green guy on there. This book was not familiar to me as far as, you know, the visuals, the cover and whatnot. And so when I saw this copy today, I thought for sure I definitely don't have this one. Well, guess what? I did, and I bought a second copy. There I go again. What are you gonna do? It's just money, right? Somebody loan me a couple bucks because I keep buying the same book over and over again, and I need some help with that. All right, we're down to the last book. Now listen, this is weird. I've never seen anything like this before. I saw this book. It was, I saw it online somewhere, and I paid a little bit more for it than I wanted to, but it was a lot cheaper than what I've seen it go for regularly. So I went on and I grabbed it. It looked a little out of place, but I grabbed it anyway. So I'm unwrapping this thing yesterday, and I pull this thing out and I'm like, what in the world is going on here? This just does not make sense to me. Well, this is another comic magazine. It's another Warren publication. But this packaging is the weirdest thing that I've ever seen in my life. This is Comics International. This is issue number 1 of Comics International. And the entire book features Corben. The whole book, the whole magazine is Corben art. The issue that I have is, look at this thing. I mean, look at this. Somebody covered it in plastic. Now, at first I thought this was some kind of weird looking protective sleeve or something. But no, this is hard plastic. It's hard plastic. I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, well, where does it open? Because I can't get it open. This thing doesn't open up. It's like encased in here. How am I supposed to read this? How am I supposed to read? Who does this? Who takes a comic and encases it in hard plastic? So I don't know. Have you guys ever seen this before? I can't get this thing off, and I don't know what they were thinking. I can't do anything with this inside of the plastic. So I tell you what we're gonna do. We got to get this thing out of here. I grabbed a few tools. I don't know what I'm gonna use on here. If I have to come out with the big guns, I will. I'm gonna try to get this out of here. Oh man, this is, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. Hold on. Maybe. There we go. I got a nice little hole. And oh, here we go. Oh, here we go. Oh, that was easy enough. All right, now we're talking. Wait a minute. Wait. Are you serious? Wait. Look at this. This thing, this doesn't even open. More plastic. Now, where were they thinking? I don't know. This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. A book that you can't read. Whose idea was that? Well, the person I bought this from, they're gonna get an earful. I can tell you that much. Jeez, I cannot get this thing out of here. Ah, here we go. I think I finally have access to the book. This is just the stupidest thing ever seen. Have you guys ever experienced that? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Ah. There we go. Now I can actually read it. Woo, look at all those beautiful colors in there. This is cool. Comics International, issue number 1, the Richard Corben edition. Well, I don't know what all this was about, but I'm glad it's over. You guys ever experienced anything like that? Because that was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Anyway, thank you guys for hanging out with me. I'm sorry you had to see me frustrated over this, but you know, I wanted to read this book and I couldn't because some idiot put plastic all around it. That's it for now. We'll see you next time on Daryl D TV. Thank you guys for hanging out, and thank you for joining me in this part 11 of my Richard Corben comic collection magazine edition. See you next time.